All right, there we go. See how that is? Trying to check our volume, get everything dialed here. Aloha and welcome to Matrix Body Mechanics Live. I'm your host, Micah Sky. Thank you for joining me this Monday. Once again, we're doing this broadcast every Monday, the top of your week to start it off as we enter in once again another week of the great unknown. We are in new territory, times of change, times of transformation, times of transition, where the only thing that is constant is change itself. Let's see. Give me 1 second here, folks. There we go. I had some feedback. There it goes. All right. We are back. Just working out a few technical things. My equipment still has not come. One of the things about living on a remote island in the Pacific is our shipping sometimes is a little it's a little delayed sometimes, depending on something's shipped. We try to make it so that you don't get something stuck on a freighter that's just sitting for some time, which is really challenging when you're wanting to get some new equipment, especially for broadcasting. So still making it work, rolling along. In fact, it's been an auspicious week for me. I had to pass on last week's broadcast. Unfortunately, I apologize, but just a couple hours prior to when I was supposed to be on the air, we welcomed in our fourth little being into the world, my fourth, my partner and my second little one into the world at around 9:30 a.m. Entering from that auspicious day we talked about, just the broadcast a week before, about the Mayan calendar and two pivotal event dates of heightened activation and awakening on the planet was June 21st and December 21st, which is marking the polarity points of the final cycle of the Mayan calendar, something I've studied for over 20 years, and I had gone into my journey with it and fascination and intuitive obsession with some visions where I saw great earth changes and transformation on the planet into a new world and a new society, a new age. And it led me to explore the ancient systems, the ancient calendars, the ancient prophecies that reflected of a golden age, and the rainbow serpent prophecy being one of them, and the Mayan calendar and the end of this time cycle, which had always been perplexing. And we had thought it had been 2012, but 2012 actually marked the beginning of the last 7 years of this 6,000 year creation cycle, completing itself December 21st, 2021. 2020. So June 21st is the summer solstice cycle, and wouldn't you know it, one of the greatest events of my entire life happened to me, where we welcomed in our fourth little being into our tribe, an amazing little girl into the world, and it was the most powerful experience for me and my partner, most powerful experience working with another human being to be a part of creating an entrance point for a magical soul into the world. So we're gonna explore some dynamics around this powerful process that we as a society have unfortunately been very desensitized and conditioned to a certain perspective around pregnancy and childbirth and the process of giving birth to children. And there are some deep set conditioned components I'd like to explore and look into as I am existing experientially in a state of abstraction from those conditioned norms. And I want to share that experience for perspective with you. And I want to explore some of the neat aspects that came with this. But first and foremost, just wanted to acknowledge, as much as I wanted to do that radio show last week, there was just no way that was happening. And it's been a solid week of all that comes with it, welcoming a new little being into the world. So definitely doing a very channeled and explorative broadcast today around life itself and the magic of birth and rebirthing oneself and the innocence and purity of that starting point for consciousness for each one of us being this pure little being entering into the world. And I've been able to now witness again these primordial stages of consciousness recording in the simulation, starting to gain bearings, starting to open eyes and look around and start to look outwardly, and then also starting to look at our own little identified vessels that we're now in, and identify our arms and our legs and look around, and of course have that yearning hunger for food, and then of course experiencing things, life, light, sound for the first time. These are all very prevalent right now in my consciousness as I'm just in such a powerful stage of what it is to welcome little beings into the world by being able to witness all these little details. That is one of the more powerful things about choosing to take on this lesson in life, in this simulation, is to witness the entrance point in every stage of that life, because it's always self-reflective, to look at oneself and give just such a powerful perspective. So we're going to be exploring that in something called being born in the shroud, or the cowl. It's a very rare way that children happen to be born, that our daughter actually happened to be born as well. Her name is Astarti, but nicknamed Star, so had a little star baby. But we had a home birth, and I have been able to be a part of two other home births with two of my other children, but this was more personalized, and was just very powerful and intimate, and they never go how you think they will, and they always just go how they go. But it was such a powerful journey, as I worked with my partner physically, where she could push off of my body to be able to actually breathe and push our baby out. And so it was really both of us working together to, with each contraction and push, to bring our daughter into the world. And our daughter was again, as I said, there's a very rare thing that happens when a baby is born with the full embryonic sac around the baby when it comes out. So this phenomenon happens when the fetus is born with the amniotic sac intact. And so this allows for the delivery to be easier and causes less bruising for the baby and the mother. A veiled birth is also what it's called, when a child is born and has a portion of the birth membrane around its head and face, also known as a cowl. This strange and rare occurrence appears in only 1 out of every 80,000 births. So 1 out of every 80,000. A newborn with a cowl is thought to have special talents and amazing powers, and is therefore held in high esteem among many cultures throughout history. Cowl-bearers often have psychic and other natural abilities, such as seeing ghosts or foretelling the future. Many can predict weather patterns and crop yields. They also make excellent dowsers and hands-on healers. In some cultures, cowl-bearers were considered kings by right because their leadership and judgment abilities. Babies born with a cowl are also considered to be very good omens. They're extremely lucky. In fact, the cowl was often preserved as a good luck charm. Women used to sell them to sailors for huge sums of money, since they were believed to protect one from drowning. There are still many pictures online if you're curious what a baby born in cowl looks like. And I saw another piece yesterday, interestingly enough, that it popped up on my information network, and it was around the fact that there is supposed to be a cord connection, both physically with the umbilical cord and an energetic cord to the soul or spirit body. And that when we cut this cord, we also compromise or kind of disconnect more the spirit body. And so with our daughter, we actually did something called a lotus birth. And a lotus birth is actually where you actually leave the placenta attached to the baby, and you put it in a bowl with a ton of herbs, and you cover it entirely with like rosemary and lavender. And there's specifically different herbs that start drying it out. And it really, I didn't notice a smell at all. And so you basically, for the first 3 days, leave the baby connected to the placenta, and you allow the cord which it does, and naturally just kind of dries and eventually falls off. And so by doing this, it allows a more sensitive adjustment as well as nutritional completion of the process of this basically kind of twin that the baby is living next to the entire time. And it's supposed to be immensely soothing for the nervous system. And at the same time, in reading this yesterday, it said that there is also an energetic effect by not cutting that cord, that you leave this spirit cord intact. So amazing things that are just really powerful and magical. And these are all different things that I have never done with any of my other three children, and also didn't have done for myself. And so it's a fascinating thing to be able to evolve a process of bringing life into the world and add extra components that, in learning knowledge and wisdom in hindsight later in life, and maybe working through the traumas accumulated by each one of us that we've collected along the way, to modify the journey for another being coming into this world, to not have that effect, or to be able to avoid that impact and have a cleaner transition, to be more grounded and rooted in the simulation here. Having a cleaner foundation to develop one's character and become self-individualized is a powerful journey. And I have been reading more about this, and apparently these beings are deeply connected to source. And I see a very deep and wise presence in this little being already, who had opened her eyes really in seconds after coming out, and just kind of really stared at me and took me in deeply, which is powerful. And our first child together, Ish, also did the same thing, and is a very deep and advanced little being, also, who has the larger head size, brain size for our species. We found out right after he was born, but we, unfortunately, with him, had to go to the hospital because there were some high risk factors with the pregnancy. And it was, we did our best to make that space our own, to bring that baby in, but bring our son in. But there was definitely a difference, and there was an element of the institution, the impersonal side of the institution in that journey at the hospital, that had its own effects. And those effects, we got to witness together over the last 3 years as our son has developed. So to be able to have this process was just very rewarding for both of us. And I want to again touch base on the concept of a lotus birth, and the concept of how much we modify the natural process of our bodies and their divinity and their divine process, to understand deeper some of the indoctrinated things. Again, and I'm sure we'll do a whole segment on this at some point, but the genital mutilation, which we call circumcision, of our male populace is a really good example. I myself, unfortunately, have had this done, and I broke that cycle for both of my sons. And I really do see a difference in their temperament, in their psychology, in their overall awareness of their own bodies, their self-awareness. And it's a beautiful and healing thing to shift that and witness the process of a little male being not having that level of trauma introduced to their nervous system at such an early age, which there is so much medical research now about the trauma, both down to neurological damage to the brain, but the loss of 4 of your 5 pleasure centers, along with, ironically, a compromise to one's cleanliness, because that skin was designed to be there to protect the device. If we look at our bodies like a machine, every part of us was there for a reason. And there is a very self-righteous side to the medical sciences, the high priest sciences of medicine, that this system is imperfect in some way, and it needs to be modified or altered, or really, again, they're creating a need for their existence, that we as a species need, because the concept of us being truly sovereign and our systems being so well designed that they truly can regenerate and heal themselves is not, it doesn't create a need for them to be of service to you and making money off of you. If you're healthy, you don't really need them. And so why would they teach you about wellness practices and lifestyle practices for your health and wellness when that creates a space of obsolescence? They're completely obsolete. There is no need in that regard, which is why out of everything that you've seen from this psychopathy of fear, just the current wave of, and I was, there's a few links I'm going to be putting into the chat room for you guys, or my producers will be putting into the chat room, um, that are really pivotal. One is called Fear Over Love. I believe that's what the title of it is. And it's just a really well put together um, documentation of the psychopathy of fear. And in the psychopathy of fear, and in the knowledge of consciousness, which is known, reality is what you choose to focus on. So we have been guided, and our consciousness has been guided to focus on this specific thing that, for all intents and purposes, for a good majority of humanity, is not worth you taking one iota of your time to really think about this in the scheme of what you should have fear around in your life. Because the percentage of you potentially being affected by this is so small that it's the equivalent of the potential of you being eaten by a mountain lion. And they actually use this reference in it. And that psychopathy is based around our indoctrination to technology, to television in general, our relationships built with all of the mainstream media. And I'm talking relationships over decades where, my parents are a good example. They consider themselves to be very versed on both sides. I watch both sides of the news. So people even have a bipartisan perspective, that this side of the news supports Republican perspective, this side supports the Democratic perspective. There's still there's this relationship of trust that is still false. That these are all institutions owned by a select group of people that control all of the news that you see in the mainstream. That is, they control it all. And so in controlling it, they have also become very versed in all aspects of control of the subconscious. And your subconscious is directing your outward reality. Your subconscious, it directs everything that you do. Okay, so you can consciously be aware of things, but the subconscious is acting out patterning, acting out your actions, acting out the functional dynamic of how you operate. And the subconscious, things can be put in the subconscious that then get acted out through the conscious mind. And there are hundreds of studies done on this. There was a ton of studies done once television came out about the alpha brainwave state and the concept of being put into an alpha wave hypnosis state, which is super easy. And there are several ways. In fact, one of my favorites, and we're going to touch base on sigils and sigilization, symbols that are created by somebody who puts intentions into those symbols. And then you, the viewer, when you see it, you just see the symbol, you don't see the intentions, but those intentions go into your subconscious. So there's an entire other side of sigil technology and sigilization that's been incorporated in, and the countdowns and count ups in news, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with the little spinning circles and the sounds while the spinning circles are happening. All those things going on in the background while the information is going are all going into the subconscious and can be coded and are coded with things to bombard your psyche and direct focus, direct your reality to different things. And so in directing your reality, they could have chosen to direct your reality to focus on the fact that there's 20 to 40,000 mountain lions throughout the United States. And they could have put maps up that showed that several of those states are highlighted here. Oh my gosh, it's 20 to 30 states in the United States have mountain lions in them. And even though, and this is all true, so they could be giving you this information and bombarding you with it, and they're not lying. This is true. There are 20 to 40,000 mountain lions throughout the United States, and several states have mountain lions in them. And now, the fact that I believe it is, you have a 1 out of 800,000 chance, I think, to be attacked by this. That doesn't matter. They could focus on the elements that are there and constantly point your direction and focus to that. And then everyone starts talking about it, and all of a sudden you're now thinking about mountain lions. And let's say that just a certain demographic is actually really afraid. Let's say not everybody goes for it, but let's say just 1 million people out of 330 million people in the States, let's say 1 million people decide to stop going outside just to be sure. They decide they're not going to go hiking anymore. Okay. I can tell you that the long-term effect of the fear now placed into the psyche of these beings to not go out into the parks for mountain lions, potentially just to be safe, is going to have a far greater effect on the health of those individuals not getting as much exercise because of this potential fear that they believe is actually really real. But in truth, it would 1 out of 800,000. The chances are so absurd, and the reaction to that and the instigation of a compromise to their lifestyle for health and wellness over something like this. I feel as though I'm generally making the point here. We have been bombarded to focus on one thing to the next. And, in this video, they take you through some of these, which, as you're getting up there in age, you start really remembering all of these, whether it was anthrax, Ebola, swine flu, bird flu. These I remember being younger and having a thought in my mind at some point when I went to get my mail. Oh, was there some anthrax in this? Okay, because it's been a systematic testing process of how they can use this broadcasting sleight of hand, directing your focus, and also bombarding you with images that trigger the brain to switch from logic and reason to reactionary survivalistic fight or flight. So this process has been an indoctrination that we have all gotten deeply ingrained into. If you think about it on a technological level, we already are part android. We carry little android robots around with us all the time. They tell us where to drive to, how to get somewhere. There's such a codependency and indoctrination already into AI technology where we are kind of part cybernetic integration anyways at this point. And it's gotten deeply into our biochemical processes of even the dopamine levels that release that are being affected by our interfacing with this artificial intelligence. So this is again bringing us back to kind of the point of, for me, these shows that we're doing is, in all of my research, coming up towards December 21st, in the window from December 21st to January 1st of 2021 is a pivotal window that is the closing of a 6,000-year cycle. And by all of the visions and theoretical quantum mechanics around this process, there will be some sort of giant energetic release, could be electromagnetic pulse release, radiation release, atmospherically, as the electron fields thin between the veils. And this will be a pivotal time for activation and awakening that we have an opportunity to prepare for from this point. Doesn't matter if idealistically our civilization and humanity should have been preparing for the last 6,000 years, and that we have been dumbed down, controlled, and really restricted and repressed on so many levels, and oppressed to be able to go inward and develop the spiritual technology. And now we're being indoctrinated into a externalized technology because those that are in control don't understand that the quantum digital interface of our consciousness can be accessed without having to plug wires and implant a chip in your brain to a processor, because you're going to be obsolete to artificial intelligence very soon. That mentality is sad to me. That it shows that people are hyper intellectual. Once again, the human species is overdeveloping in intellect, but not in spiritual connectedness and in conscious awareness, spiritual awareness. And this has kind of been the problem several times over for humanity through these cycles and the rising and falling of civilizations, is the technology always overdeveloped over the spiritual awareness and the spiritual awakening process. And so that's what we're in. We are in a technological slash spiritual warfare at this point, where spiritual technologies are foundational, utilizing all of the knowledge and wisdom that you can to explore and understand this vehicle and turn it on to be in a place where you can truly utilize this window coming up December 21st to January 1st, 2021, to soak in, absorb, be receptive to the activation, the light, whatever takes place coming up. Again, it's not about putting a focus on a single day or an event that's going to change your life. That's not actually what this is about. We're actually proactively incorporating awareness for healthy lifestyle practices to prepare for a period of time that we have, through technology, through study, through research, developed the knowledge is going to happen, with even a general understanding of the mechanics of what's happening. Don't need to know the perfect elements of measurements and dynamics, or even exactly, but understanding conceptually that there is a series of realms interlaced between electron fields. And that is what that Mayan calendar, the series of rings, represents. It represents the rings of these realms, and having different periods that tie again to the yugas. So this is lining into the Vedas and the yugas as well, that you have these seasonal rings of realms that represent stages of consciousness and periods of awakening and enlightenment, as well as a period of chaos and darkness and unknowing, and forgetting, and a darker period that we rise from, and similar, parallel to the seasons, where your fall and your winter seasons are going to be shorter fractions of the time that sun and life grows. This also could be reflective of a photonic cycle, which all matter, remember, all matter is light that's been slowed down so much that matter electromagnetically attracts, becomes magnetized. Matter comes together. When light slows down, it materializes, and then in that matter construct is still light in that photonic cycle that has a beginning and an end. And that matter can only exist in the photonic cycle in its full. Once it comes to completion, all that matter turns back into light. And I don't fully understand the dynamics of, but this is, again, from the visions that I've been shown, this is what we're working towards. And I don't know what it looks like after that period, because in my visions, everything just collectively, with a giant hum in the background, like that, and then it all went to light, and I came out of the vision after that. So at that point, I wasn't sure. 10 years ago, I thought it was just like the end of all of reality. It was, but I in hindsight, a decade later, I'm really more clear that it's the end of reality as we know it. And that includes the identification of this thing that I was super identified with in a younger stage of my life. So it was very unnerving to feel in the vision, even if I didn't know what happened, that everything kind of went into light again, which now I feel like I understand it deeper. And I feel like, again, kind of like when you wake up from sleeping and there's kind of a flash of light, and then your eyes acclimate, and you're in whatever conscious present state you're in, whether it's dreaming consciously or whether it's in this realm, you acclimate and adjust. I feel like that's what it was. I didn't get to see past the opening eyes to the new density, the new perspective of density. And again, on a quantum level, that's going to come in the form of, we are in what's called time space right now, and everything is supposed to flip to space time. And so in flipping to space time, it's a funny thing. What does that exactly mean? Well, it means that instead of having to move through space, um, set to a cycle of time, so it would take you this much time to go this distance, you are consciously thinking and you're just there. So it's instant in the way that you navigate even through the construct. Um, you're thinking of a place, it's in Africa, you're there. You're thinking of another realm, you're there. And you know very interesting, they're describing this quantum web, so to speak, a lot in this way when they talk about the future of, um, the web, the internet, this 5G or more, 6G, these are like information density webs that I've been seeing a lot about, talking about that they're just already there. These are networks of information, of energy information that we're technologically developing ways to tap into. But there are ways to tap into this through the spiritual sciences and spiritual technologies, that we're taking the technological route, but very easily there is a spiritual route. When I say very easily, I mean that, um, some of the greatest truths are very simple. Not to say that there isn't a significance to having discipline when practicing sciences, because the discipline is what produces the results. And unfortunately for the Western world, we lack the discipline to follow through things, and do simple practices. Again, I've taught some very basic, simple practices that could change your life on these broadcasts. How many people are actually doing them every day? You might have tried it and then, oh, I tried that, oh, and you might have even felt a result, but you didn't incorporate it. You didn't continue to do it the following day. So we are going to get into a little breath technique, keeping it very basic and simple. I'm going to show you actually how to switch back and forth, cycling oxygen in between both sides of the nasal passage, which is going to activate and stimulate the lymphatic glands, um, as well as activating the sinus, detoxing the sinus, and this is an important thing. And let's touch base a little bit about, the lymphatic system. There's several articles that have been done. They focus on like the origin and development of all of the complex system, the vessels, the valves, the nodes, the organs, but just the kind of like truly understanding the mechanism of the lymphatic system. Um, like for instance, in ancient times, if we look more to the roots, early civilizations, they didn't really distinctify between, the lymphs and the blood. Um, they kind of saw them as kind of one component, And Egypt, India, and China, it was almost it was given kind of the title white blood, so to speak. It's this white lymph. It carries lipids, and the lipids are from the alimentary tract, but this milky kind of lymph vessel that carries chyle. Um, in addition, it probably has observed the thoracic ducts in animals, like when they were doing dissection and stuff like that. But the significance of the lymphatic system and those lymphatic ducts is to filter, is to move toxins, is to flush. And that's why you have these ducts kind of all over the body, and you have ducts all through here in the face. You have ducts under the armpits here. You have ducts right here. You have ducts under the chin right here, under the throat. And these tend to get really swollen for a lot of people. We don't even realize sometimes how swollen our glands are. But it's imperative the lymphatic circulation and blood circulation, are cohesively, like, flowing, that they really, they run kind of like pipes alongside of each other. as there's been more knowledge with the lymphatic system beginning to grow, the interest of combining different therapeutic techniques was really relevant to understand that, wow, you could do a specific treatment just to release the lymphatic glands, just to do lymphatic flushes. And along my way, whether it was with shiatsu or reflexology, there were specific patterns just to flush and release the lymphatic glands. Amazing stuff, amazing in curing all types of ailments. It's amazing to see, if you do a lymphatic flush, the effects that can happen. So when we do this breath work through the nasal passage, we're going to actually be exploring, where the lymphatic glands and how they flush and how they release, and how you can also just work on them. So for those of you that are watching on the YouTube Live channel or watching a rebroadcast, we teach a lot about doing cross-lateral unlocking of your tissue, that all of your physical tissue is kind of like a Lego blocks, how they fit inside of each other, in and out. 1 second here. And so when we do the stimulation and activation of the techniques through the tissue, we actually are pressing up and down and side to side. So we press through the tissue, move it up and down, side to side, press through the tissue, up and down, side to side. And as we do that, this kind of a systematic unlocking, stimulation, palpation of the tissue, we're unlocking and flushing the various glands, the various cells, muscle. We're breaking up the myofascial webbing, and in the process, we're flushing fresh blood and oxygen to the tissue, which is why, you can pretty much do this. I'm just doing it on my face because you can see right here, I'm pressing in, up and down, side to side, pressing in, up and down, side to side. I'm just pressing along my cheeks for those of you that are tuning in on the radio. Just taking my two fingers like little hooks, my pointer fingers, pressing them into my cheeks, and I'm going up and down, side to side, move just around a little bit to the next point, kind of do a series of points like a sewing machine. So as I do this, I'm flushing the tissue, and as I flush the tissue, I'm activating the tissue, the neurons in the tissue, as well as stimulating the toxins to flush through the tissue itself. Excuse me. And as we move and lift the tissue, so now I'm kind of lifting the tissue on the cheeks. I'm actually lifting my cheeks to go back into the position that gravity is pulling them all the time. So here we go. You can see I'm lifting the tissue, lifting. Well, at the same time, while I'm doing all this to the muscles, the nerves, the ligaments, you can see I'm lifting the tissue up. It's lifting my cheeks. And I can actually see, okay, look, I can see right here, I need to move some more of this up. So I'm going to lift and move the cheeks around there. Good. And I'm going to lift along this pattern that goes up along the cheek line, up behind the ears. And as I lift along this pattern up behind the ears, I'm actually lifting the muscular system of the cheeks that pulls them up this way, and gravity pulls them down this way. So we're reversing the gravity pulling the tissue. Okay. So at the same time, as I'm lifting this, flushing the tissue, I'm also hitting all the lymphs through here. And those lymphs start flushing now down through here. So you can see I can hit the lymphs under my throat, just under my jaw. I could feel right where they are. See, it's going to stimulate the throat right here. Actually causes me to cough a little bit. It's activating any irritation in the throat. Oh, I got another one. Oh, good. It actually is forcing a release in the throat. It's activating a release. There it goes. Good. All through here. Lymphs. And the lymphs even cluster down into here. Then you have a couple lymphs in here and under here. So, if you feel inspired, let's see, I could probably bring one up for you. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can get our first little sharing piece of info. Let's see if I can get this to come up for you. Lymph nodes. Just see if I can pull this up real quick. Okay, see if there's a good chart. There is a program, an app for your cell phone or your laptop or your iPad, preferably an iPad's the best. Um, and it is called Visual Body, and it is a 3D app that that you can go in, you can zoom into areas of the body. Here we go. This one looks like it works. Okay, so I'm just gonna click on this, see if I can put this in here and show you guys. There we go. All right, let's see if I can screen share this with you. I'm just gonna try this out. There it is. Okay, it should pop up on the screen for you. Put this down. All right, so you can just see this track of green here going down the arms. You can see along the face and in the cheeks, right where I was working there, under the jaw right here, and it goes all around. This is its own um, kind of ventilation system or piping system for moving uh, toxicity, for fighting infection, for the distribution and filtering of white blood cells and to fight infection and really overall immunity in the body. So it's really an exciting thing. I want to support everybody to do, to explore and get to know your nervous system, your body better. It is just one of the most empowering things for you to look under the hood, so to speak, and actually learn about your own body, your structure of your body, your anatomy, your physiology, what different things do. And it has a profound effect on everything that you do. Eating, um, sleeping, understanding that past 10 o'clock, or if you're up past 10, you're throwing your whole body system off, because around after 10 o'clock or by like 9:30, 10 o'clock, the actual liver and kidneys, everything wants to kick on and is expecting to start processing from the day. And that would normally be because you are actually in sleep. So you're supposed to be in a certain level of depth of sleep towards theta by 10 o'clock. So not just going to bed by 10, but that you're actually supposed to be in to that deeper sleep state by 10, so that the actual liver and the organs, the kidneys, can kick on and do what they got to do. And when you're still up, your body goes, oh, I guess we're not going to do that. And it actually flips off from doing its processing. And that has an overall effect on your body. So you could even be like learning that. You could experiment with it and try getting yourself to bed so that you'd be sleeping by 10 and see how that affects your physiological process. How are you feeling? How is it affecting your digestion? Understanding that your gallbladder gets overwhelmed from oils. That's one of the things that gets hit the hardest from processed oils is the gallbladder. Try taking a month where you absolutely cut oil out of your diet and not only see how different you feel, but see how hard it is to do. See how much oils, something completely unnatural, are completely integrated into your entire experience of both how you know to make food and how people out in the world or where you might go to eat food know to make food for you. You have to actually explain it to them. Well, I'd like to have some fish. I'd like it to be seared. Maybe just heat the water and just get maybe like a poaching with a little herbs, um, and sea salt, and they'll just be like, but okay, well we usually just put it on the grill or we fry it in the pan with oil, and you have to tell them actually it's super simple. You just heat water in a pan, um, little sea salt's fine, and then just put the fish in, put a lid on, just it'll poach it up for me, and most people actually do it. You just have to take the time to teach them. um, Now there is a significance to variance, okay? And a question was asked about if you're a night person. I am a night person. I mean, I think this is just something that happens. It's been described in the yogic sciences that a yogic practitioner over time builds a kind of supernatural process to their body. Their body, their body's functionality level gets to an optimum place where they sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, and they're good with that. And they have energy, and they have vitality and strength. And I definitely transitioned to that place some years ago. Now practicing the sciences for around 25 years. I sleep 4, maybe 5 hours a night, and if I'm really, and that's with minimal kundalini, that's with minimal practices in meditation. If I'm really doing solid sets, I'll be sleeping 3, maybe 4 hours, and that's with me really trying to sleep. My hair, skin, and nails grow at an accelerated rate. Um, I broke my ankle in 2 places. Was told 4 months for full recovery for the bone to regenerate. It took a month. I've noticed that there is a transcendence that comes if you operate this thing and activate it to an optimal level. Now, I'm just describing to you the basic schedule, and that your body looks to assign itself. If you are in a heightened meditative state, or you're doing some deep practices, or you're activating, you know, remember, we've talked about this, just always establish for a baseline, because I know it's kind of new in the West for people to really understand this. The yogic sciences, neuromuscular therapy, will look at it as taking all of the cells in your body and activating their batteries. Because remember, a cell, the nucleus is acidic, the cytoplasm is alkaline. That's all cells. Nucleus, cytoplasm, acid, alkaline, separated by a membrane wall. That is a battery. So all those batteries can be stimulated and boost the hertz and activate the hertz, which means it boosts the functionality and the physiological processes of the body to an optimal level, which you could do at any time. The body's going to boost and go into that. If it's not, then it has a set schedule without doing anything that's just running on automation. You can affect that automation and improve it, activate it, awaken it, and that's going to kind of take you out of a standard model that explains things. So that's kind of my roundabout way to say, I'm not saying many of you don't consider yourselves night owls, and you're just up. I totally understand. That's a whole other chapter that I was kind of feeling guided to go into, just the basics of around human design and aura type. So aura type, what is this? So aura type has to do with that there are 4 different types of energy fields that have been tracked or identified with humanity in this evolutionary process that we're in. And those 4 aura types, one of the 4 would be known as the generator, the Energizer Bunny. They have limitless amounts of energy. And if we were to look at the body having 9 energy centers, the sexual center, the energy center, the sacral center, the creative fire center, that's the foundational center that makes a generator. A generator, we are Energizer bunnies. We just go, go, go. So yes, there's a significance to that, but because you are both physical and energetic, there is going to still be a significance to the fact that your body still wants to process toxins at a certain point that it's expecting to be able to in the evening time. So even if that means, let's say that you take like a evening nap from, let's say, 7 to like 11, and you woke up and were late night then. If you took that rest period, this is just a compromised option to explore, and everything is experiment based. So, the results will show you with anything. So don't listen to me, do your own research and experiment, and be willing to experiment, because it's way easier to just listen to somebody. It takes more effort for you to experiment and see what works for you. And that's how you know that you can earn it, because it should always produce results. You shouldn't do anything that doesn't produce results for you, bottom line. So maybe taking a nap window to allow for some processing if you'd like to be a night owl. But if you're a night owl, a lot of times, here's the other thing about calling yourself a night owl. And this has to do with just how deeply indoctrinated and conditioned we are. Most of us are hyperadrenalized. So we are running on adrenaline, really. We are hyperadrenalized, running on adrenaline, restless, Our nervous systems are full of neurochemical memory that's accumulated over our lives. We haven't released. It's that kind of just, and then a lot of us are feeling energy and we don't know how to just be still and feel it. So we're doing something with it. We're always doing something to try to get rid of that energy. See, because right now, what am I doing? I'm exerting energy to do this. Let's say I'm just sitting here and I'm just thinking and doing something like this. Why am I wasting all this energy right here? This is all energy. It's just leaking out. I could be still and learn to feel that and feel that energy and start directing it places. This is where, things like smile meditation and directed meditation is really cool. These are entire avenues of activities that human beings need to start getting more comfortable and practicing with. We have touched base in the past that imagination is the foundation to psychic ability. So if you want to develop your psychic ability, you have to focus on your mind's eye and start working within the imagination. Excuse me. Imagination is the foundation. Psychic ability is directed focus of the mind's eye. In order for you to get comfortable with mind's eye, you have to practice with your imagination, with your visualization. When practicing imagination, mind's eye, visualization, it's alienating. It feels uncomfortable. You're going to want to do it really quick and then go back into the five senses and being distracted. We really need to start getting comfortable going within. I don't believe that, I'll rephrase that. I believe the greatest magic that's coming with this magical period that's coming up as we close the 6,000 year cycle. And also keep in mind, all of the planets will be aligned starting December 21st. That alignment stays till January 1st. I believe the greatest gifts will most likely not be out here. They are going to be from going within. In fact, out here might be and is already lining up to be the most distracting. It will be your greatest challenge to not go out here in fear and to go within and fully trust and surrender and go within. And with that, I'm gonna, sorry about that, bumped my mic. For so the ajna, or the third eye, let's just talk about that for a second. What happens when I close my eyes and roll my eyes upwards? Now, when I was a child, I grew up in a more Eastern religious family, Eastern spiritual sciences. So, and I've shared this in my story before, before yoga was cool, I was actually embarrassed that was what my family's, spiritual practices were rooted in over, I was indoctrinated into the homogenization of wanting to be Western and American at an early age. Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it, that I had a compulsion to have blue eyes and blonde hair, no joke, and to not eat all of the weird healthy foods my mom was bringing in, and wanted to have the super gross sugary cereals that all the other kids had and get to watch TV like they had and have the same video game systems. I wanted my name to be John or Chris, and I wanted blue eyes and blonde hair. Literally, look at that. That was my own weird Aryan programmed indoctrination thing that was totally innocent. And it was like, I really saw those things in the mainstream media and outwardly had a desire, like that was the best thing I could have being in America. That was like the best, highest look, highest identity, which later in life I feel so blessed that my name is Micah and I have dark, wavy hair that's not straight and blonde, and dark eyes, and my own unique, strange kind of cultural autonomy where I could be from anywhere, actually. Who knows where I'm from? Um, those things became magical later on with my individualized self identification process. But so interesting early on in culture, character, identity, I was conditioned to desire this other thing. Weird. So through the process of that kind of homogenization, I also still absorbed Eastern magical components, like understanding that Jedis and yogis were pretty much the same thing. And in the yogic cultures, in the Eastern cultures, the yogis were kind of known as Jedis that had mysterious feats that they were recorded doing all over the cities and in the city records. Even some of these recalls and um, community records were fascinating to see, whether they were levitating or one of them got injured by a police officer who mistaked him for a thief and deeply wounded him, and he walked off with his turban wrapped up around the wound. And the man came later, he told him his address and said, come pick your turban up later. And the man came later to pick his turban up, and the guy was completely healed and his turban had no blood on it. And he said, thanks for letting me borrow your turban. And the police officer just broke to his knees crying. It was like, oh my God, wow, like such a divine expression of God and forgiveness. And so I was raised with these magical stories and awarenesses that made me see how magic this was, even though it wasn't the homogenized Catholic or Christian or Presbyterian following of all the people I went to school with. So I always saw meditation and people like this, adults meditating like this. And at first I always thought it kind of creeped me out, like, oh, they look like a zombie or something. But I naturally tried to do it, and obviously there was something that happened as soon as I did it. And from the moment I did it, there's a physiological process that happens, and let me explain what it is. You have a pineal gland that's known as the spirit molecule. It produces something called dimethyltryptamine. DMT is released when you're born and when you die. Um, it is your spirit center. It's depicted in the Eye of Horus. The Spear of Destiny even represents. There's a lot of really pivotal ancient understanding of the pineal gland. And if you've ever done ayahuasca has a form of dimethyltryptamine in it. And also you can just do dimethyltryptamine, whether it's extracted from a plant or from a toad. And, it's been a powerful spiritual tool that has helped me. I don't feel the need to do it anymore because I've learned how to access and activate the dimethyltryptamine from my own pineal gland, which should be the overall point with medicines, is they show you somewhere you can reach naturally on your own. And the spiritual practices through the breath are going to be more powerful because they don't have side effects to them, which is what makes them so magical. So when you are activating the dimethyltryptamine to release, you can do that a few different ways. Now, when you're a baby and you're in the womb, in utero, the pineal gland actually forms on the roof of the mouth and actually sits on the roof of the mouth and then ascends to the center. If I were to drill right through here, it would go right about here in is where that pineal gland is. So when you press your tongue to the roof of your mouth, you're activating the nerve points that go up to the pineal gland. And when you are rolling your eyes up like this, rolling towards this point, ironically, there are neural pathways that go from the back of the eyes to the pineal gland when you stretch them up like this. When you flex them like this, it activates this stimulation, this bioelectricity. It stimulates the dimethyltryptamine. And over time, when you hold this here, now, by the way, this can be very painful when you try to do it at first, because you're going to notice all the muscles around your eyes are all tight. They're all tight all around here. So it's not going to be as comfortable to stretch them up. In fact, if you give it if you do 30 seconds or a minute, you'll notice that they'll start stretching up easier, and to where you'll actually, and if you start doing this every day, which I did as a kid, I actually got them you can see they just get trained to go up, and then they just kind of comfortably sit. So I can just comfortably sit here, and from the moment that I do this, I can feel it activating the pineal gland, and there's this grounding, peaceful, warm feeling that starts to come on the longer that I hold this. Okay, which is why meditation, when you're doing meditation properly in the highest form, and you're activating these different points, and when we do this breath work with Breath of Fire, which you guys have seen before, okay, and when we finish the breath exercise that I'm going to be leading into from talking about this right now, where I showed you we're going to be clearing both sides of the nasal passage and also oxygenating blood into the brain from both hemispheres by taking deep breaths back and forth. When we finish this, we're going to take a deep breath like we do with every breath technique, and we're going to exercise the mind. We're going to activate the imagination in the mind's eye. How are we going to do that? We're going to have you see in your mind's eye, when you take your final deep breath at the end of the exercise we do, you're going to take a deep breath. You're going to see a column of light from earth to sky, and you're going to see energies coming up and coming out the top, coming back down through the root, and making a toroidal field where you're going to be circulating the energy as you hold your breath. All of these energy centers held, including tongue to the roof of the mouth, eyes rolled to the third eye, holding, squeezing. Okay, so that's our finish point, and that is the same finish point that we do in a lot of the techniques that you've seen, whether it be pranayama, which is breath of fire, or Padapati, which is a similar form with a forced expulsion and a natural inhale. Okay, so again, for a review, for those of you just tuning in and checking this out, we go through a lot of the sciences that will help activate your body, mind, and spirit in preparation for some really powerful energetic events to come. That is ultimately all that matters. Getting distracted by the psychopathy of fear, by watching television, the mainstream media. I fully support you to go into underground news networks, do your own research, watch really well researched documentaries that make you think. But the time for getting lost into is anyone even watching movies anymore? If you are watching movies right now over waking up in this crazy movie that we are in right now, that is beyond anything that could ever be written and crafted by Hollywood to distract you, we are we are in it. You should be completely entertained and have more than enough personal magic movie information to be exploring and learning about, whether it's exploring the spiritual sciences, learning breath work, learning how to meditate more, focusing on activating and detoxing your cells, focusing on cleansing yourself, focusing on working with activating yourself through different forms of these ancient technologies, ancient sciences, or plant medicines that maybe you're guided to. This is a time of movie magic for you. The last thing any of us should be doing is watching other people's movies on TV. You are in a magic movie right now, and it's time to start waking up to see that. Spitting that fire, spitting that energy. So let's go into some breath work. Let's go into a basic understanding of how to switch between nostrils with breathing. So I'm going to give you just a basic one. Okay. So I'm going to be using the ring finger and the thumb. All right. Now I'm using my right hand, so it'll be my left ring finger pressing against my left nostril to inhale in the right side. And my thumb will be on the right side, blocking the right side so I can inhale or exhale through my left nostril. Okay. So, two basic techniques we're going to go through. First one is going to be, and we're always going to start breathless, so we're going to blow all the air out. So, breathless, we're going to be inhaling from the right, holding, closing the nostrils, exhaling left, closing,
then inhaling left. So same side that went out. After we close, we open it and we inhale. And close. Opening right side, we're going to exhale right. And close. And then we inhale right again once we open. Close. Opening left now and exhaling left. Now you're going to hear me break the breath up. I'm using the valve in my nose to break up the breath. I can also inhale that way too. See, I'm taking a series of pulls. Close, hold. I'm just going to go back out the left to show you the breaking the breath up to the exhale. Okay, you can hear it. If you can't see it because you're listening on the radio. So the pattern would start blowing everything out, closing both nostrils. We're going to be inhaling to start with from the right. Hold, closing both nostrils. And then we're going to open left and exhale left. Break it up if you want to. This strengthens the muscles in the nasal passage. Then we're going to take that breath in on the left, we're going to close and then open again. And that's going to start our cycle. Inhaling left, close, open right, and exhale right, close, then inhale right, close, exhale left, close, inhale left, close, exhale right, close, inhale right, close, exhale left, close, inhale left, close, exhale. So the closing is happening in between each one. Why? Well, when you're spacing out the inhalations and exhalations, it's naturally regulating your circulatory system. It's also forcing the body to be breathless for a few seconds, which kicks the hypoxia and it starts directing oxygenated blood. It's also flipping the blood to an alkaline state when we're doing this. Just by starting to oxygenate the blood, but then also the hypoxia by just staying breathless for a few seconds before you inhale. And you're now manipulating back and forth, which is flushing deep congestion up in the upper sinus areas, deep up in here, which is where most of us get blocked. It's actually not down in the nostril or in the lower part of the sinus. It actually gets deep up through here in all these lymphatic clusters all the way up through here. So let's do this for 30 seconds, okay? Then we're going to finish. And we're going to finish, and we're going to blow all the air out, and we're going to stay breathless, both nostrils closed. And then we're going to take a deep breath through both nostrils. We're going to sip a little more, close both nostrils. And by this time, with that breath, I want you to pull like you're holding from having to go pee from the root, from the bladder. So I'm going to angle this down. So you can see I'm kind of, go a little lower, pulling up, filling up into the chest, and then you're going to pull the chest back. You're going to tuck your chin, tongue press to the roof of the mouth, eyes roll to the third eye. This is going to be like a series of flexed, which means you're putting electromagnetics, you're putting electricity flexed in those points, energy flexed points that's going to move the bioelectricity along with the oxygen up into the brain, activating the brain, flooding the brain with oxygen. It's going to produce a euphoria. You're going to notice when we do this, we would do a few cycles of this, a few rounds of this, but we're just going to do one. So here we go. Let's see, get my little timer here. Outstanding. Everybody ready? Okay, so let's blow all the air out to start with. Empty everything out. Get it all out. And we're going to stay breathless, closing both nostrils for a few seconds. And inhale to the right. Take a few pulls if you want to, and close it. Holding. And we're going to go across releasing that ring finger on the left nostril and exhaling out. See, I'm breaking up the breath. And breathless, close. And inhaling left side. Close. Releasing the thumb. If you're doing it with your right hand. And so we're going to release the nostril on the right side and exhale. Break the breath up if you want to. And close. And inhale right. And close. Switching to the left. Breaking the breath up. And close. Inhale left now. Close. And close. Two more. Back to the right. And close. And exhaling the left side and close all the way completely. All right, last one through the left. And close. We're going to finish on the right side. Exhaling out the right. And now in this one, we're going to stay breathless, close both. Stay breathless for as long as you can. And when you're ready, deep breath through the nostrils. Pulling from your root all the way up. Fill the chest. Sip through the mouth. Tongue press the roof of the mouth. Eyes roll to the third eye. Close both nostrils. Hold and squeeze. See a column of light from earth to sky. And exhaling out both nostrils. Now this is where we would transition into Ujjayi breath. And Ujjayi breath is through the nose, through the throat. So it's like that cooling breath through the nose, through the throat. We taught this in the first of our episodes. I always like to still teach it because it's naturally teaching you regulate your breath. So it's through the nose, through the throat. It's a completely intuitive thing. Every person knows how to do this. And if they've forgotten or they've kept this closed because they're breathing shallow through their nose or breathing through their mouths, you mouth breathers out there, it's time to shift it. And it's easy to go home. You know how to get back to this place. Really easy to learn how to do. Start with the mouth open. Close halfway through. Keep that valve open. You can even see it stay open. Same when you exhale. So halfway through, you close the mouth and keep pushing. Keep that valve open. Watch when I don't do that. You can see it's closed here. See how it closes down? Now watch when I keep it open. As opposed to. You can see it's open right there. That's the breath you should be doing when you're out in your day, walking around, because it's going to filter and regulate the oxygens, cool, calm the heart rate, naturally calm you while filtering oxygen. And actually, there's a minor amount of nitrous oxide that releases in the nasal passage when you breathe through your nose that sanitizes the air. Very wise, very brilliant technology if you're using it right. Anyone can take a Ferrari, drive around in first or second gear, and say this is a cool car, even though they're kind of jerking all over the road, and they're straining the hell out of the engine. So that doesn't mean you're operating it properly. And if you didn't shift into third, fourth, and fifth gear and learn how to shift between gears, that entire experience will be completely different as a vehicle, as a driving experience, right? So when we learn how to do these basic divine functions, is what I call them. We're working on programs right now for everybody, and I promise you, just a deep, deep push is behind me to get this technology out, to get this information, these techniques out in a way that you can comfortably build a lifestyle practice. It is about you learning to get comfortable doing this for yourself, doing organic facelifts and lifting the tissue of your face, okay? Learning how to move this tissue just a little bit. When I press in and I lift it, I don't go past, I don't slide like that. I go, if that's where it stops, then I'm going to lift somewhere else and press and lift that. You're actually going underneath to the deeper layers and you're lifting and setting the tissue so it sits back in place, which you can just see. I just did that right now. Look, you can see my cheeks are sitting higher right here all along this area, and I would keep working on them. Actually, I can see where 3 parts where the tissue is not even, so I'm now going to try to set them again. Good. And now over time these muscles start tightening and toning and lifting after I do this. A lot of times they won't even lift right away. They'll start tightening and toning after. But it's amazing how much you can actually lift and tone the tissue right off the bat, where it is lifted and sitting higher on my actual face. This is important in understanding that you only look as aged and weathered as you have chosen to weather yourself. You can shift and actually regenerate tissue to look completely different. And again, thousands of people over 20 years that I've been able to assist, including myself, my family. It's not a theory. It is your technology. You are that magical. And that is why those that control everything know how magical you are. And if they can warp and distract you to focus and be afraid and allow your day, your reality, your experience with human beings to be affected by this fear, it's taking you away from activating and understanding your true divinity. It's all part of this plan. It's all part of a plan to compromise the evolution of a species that's extremely powerful, that they have really never truly been able to control. And this is going to progressively dwindle from here. But you hold in your hands the power individually to incorporate lifestyle practices that will directly change your individual sphere, which is collectively part of this consciousness thought grid that is creating reality itself. Why do you think that they're so focused on manipulating the populace through imagery? Because they've understood already that there's a consciousness grid that we construct and create our reality from. That's what predictive programming is. We could show so many examples, but I don't have to. You can go look them up online. Look up just predictive programming and see how many things were introduced into our consciousness through movies and shows that are now playing out now. And we laugh and we say, oh, it's prophetic. Is it? Or was that placed in enough people's conscious reality that eventually that started to manifest outwardly? Because that is how it works. I mean, we could look down to the physics of wave, if it's a wave or a particle, that it changes. Some of the latest quantum physics has been the most mind-boggling, that it changes from particle to a wave depending on an observer. If you're not looking at something, it changes form. It changes from a wave to a particle when it's observed. And when you look away, it's back to a waveform. That means that what we choose to focus on becoming real from the waveform quantum world of waveforms, what we choose to focus on, we materialize. It's right there in quantum physics for you, right in front for you to see. All knowledge and wisdom is now at the forefront. This is the time of knowledge accessibility. We have access to so much knowledge at our fingertips. We have access to so many documents showing what they are doing and have been doing since the 60s, influencing, and long before, but really it got kicked up as they started to see what happens to the brain when you watch television and your brain switches to an alpha wave hypnosis platform. Now, when you're watching something that's interactive and you're learning, like even right now, we're interfacing this, your brain is going to be in beta right now. You're thinking, you're logical, you're exploring, we're looking at concepts, you're learning breath work, you are engaging in something that's keeping you in a beta brainwave state. When you're watching something that is designed to take you on a journey and you are in that is where the alpha wave kicks in. It is in literally make believe, in Hollywood, in stories that you are watching that are designed where you the viewer are supposed to watch each frame and shot as it takes you through a journey. And so much of that frame rate, the frame rate, with high definition television, you are getting so many frames pulsed in at one time. And part of the subconscious, I want you to look, everyone check out, do your own research on something called mnemonic circles. Okay. Mnemonic circles and sigil technology. Mnemonic circles are any of the circles that you see spinning when they do a news broadcast or a news bulletin or a sports top 10, and they have all these circles spinning. All right. And circles with little rings and coated little slats, little markers all inside of them spinning all at one time, and they have a sound that goes with it with the spinning, and their symbols. Now, I want you to understand the level of detail put into these images that you're supposed to see for a few seconds is ridiculous. They put all the details into that because they know that your subconscious is going to be seeing that little with the light. These are all, again, check out basic hypnosis, mind control, manipulation tactics. They use a sound with another distracting thing because the goal is to get this thing happening in the subconscious while the sound is distracting you with the primary number that they want you to focus on, or the symbol, or the CBS, or whatever. These are, they're not, we're beyond theories here, guys. This, you can look up the documentation of the scientific side of what's happening to the subconscious mind, and then the concept of frame rates and how your subconscious is taking in frames frame by frame, boom 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 boom. So for the longest time, before I even knew what mnemonic circles were, I found myself looking away. If there would be something coming on and there was a news bulletin, I would always look away with my eyes. Like, my eyes did not want to take in whatever that coding was. I recently just saw the old video that, Oh Say Can You See, that they used to play, on television, at the end of the night, I think. And it has the words on the bottom. Old video. And they actually slow the frame rate down. It's going to be in the video that we put in the links for you guys. And in fact, actually, I want to make sure that goes in so you guys can check that out now. But they literally show, the messages. Trust the U.S. government. That's that was what one of them was. Trust the U.S. government. That was one of the first ones that it actually said. Let's see. Putting it in here for you. Get it to my producers. There we go. There's one. Boom. That's the first one right there. And then another one I just found is just, again, this was one that was done a long time ago. Really, really good. Definitely, just everyone really should just watch it just to understand what we're talking about here. The concepts of television, what it's doing, how the brain works, how the frame rates work. I sent both the links and they're going to get shared in the chat room for you guys. Just again, remember that we have all been deeply indoctrinated into these technologies, and the desensitization is sneaky. So it might look different for you than it does for me, but pay attention and witness it. And also, let's start really putting it in check. Like I said, I haven't watched really a fictional show or a movie. And I was a screenwriter. I was in Hollywood for 10 years working to, launch my career and primarily for the art of movies, of screenwriting, of storytelling, and also my love of acting and performing. I mean, I was in it for 10 years, and I learned a lot of the lies and illusions of what it was. In fact, one of my deeper, realer experiences, and I kind of brought this memory back up to laugh with my mom. She's been here helping and was able to welcome in our daughter and be here on a trip. By the way, just because it's relevant, she was arrested yesterday morning because the police came to enforce and check on her being in quarantine, because you have to be in quarantine for 14 days here in the Hawaiian Islands. And she had walked off of the property just to take some time for herself. And I got a call while I was out that the police were there and they didn't know where my mom was. So I get home and my mom is back, and she had walked back after they had left. And she was like, "Oh, okay. Well, they said they were going to come back." So they came back at 6 in the morning, banging on our door the next day, and then proceeded to arrest my mom, read her Miranda rights, and then give her a fine and citation that she's supposed to come back in August for. After we explained that she was still on the property, they just said, "No, we drove her on the property and didn't see you," and basically wrote it off that, we were lying. And yeah, so my sweet old mother, who has been here helping us with the baby and being an amazing for our family, uh, got the also enjoyable experience of officially being arrested for breaking a quarantine that she did not break for a virus that has an overall death rate of 0.26%. And I hope you watch the link for the video that I showed you, because one of the best things is it gives a perspective of scale. And this is sadly one of the things that we have all been so manipulated on, is we don't understand statistics and scale. If you understood the actual scale of what we're talking about with the statistics that are, even with the inflated numbers that are currently coming out from our supposed trusted authorities for this information, even with the inflation, the scale of this is the equivalent in terms of fatality to a common cold. Now, I know it's not, I used a mountain lion reference, and yeah, mountain lion, that's a mountain lion. It's like our psychopathy and fear is that somebody could give this to you, and even if you're not, that person's not going to be fatal from it, they could give it to you and it could be fatal for you. So there is this fear, cooties fear. It's like an old primordial cooties, this fear of our bodies and germs and infection and disease. And to me it triggers like the HIV fear mongering, fear bombardment that we were hit with, or the Ebola or the anthrax. And as you look through two of the documentaries I posted, that are great documentations and perspective giving for the scheme of what it is that's really been happening, which is the psychopathy of fear is far more destructive for your health than worrying about something that, especially if you are a younger person under 45, it is absurd for you to have a psychopathy of fear around this. If you look and truly understand the scale and the statistics for yourself as a younger person. Older person, I can understand to some degree, just like a seasonal flu or anything else, or someone with an underlying health condition, 100%. But just for the healthy, overall healthy people under 45, even up to 45, that is what we're talking about here, is the mass amount of of humans that the psychopathy is going to affect the overall trajectory of them maybe having a healthier and existence besides the obsessive hand washing, but the psychopathy that creeps in where it's in your thoughts. It's you're thinking, oh, I touched this. Is that going to be like I was in the first stages of this because my wife was pregnant at the time, and because of my personal experience with understanding technological mutative strains of viruses, that those in control orchestrating this have the capabilities and the moral ethical indifference to release something like this. It had triggered me at first until some of my medical colleagues refreshed me on virology and microbiology, which the knowledge broke the fear in understanding the significance of what it is we're talking about. And if we could impress upon everyone that this thing that has been repeated so many times to you and has been conditioned in such a way for you to look at as the boogeyman, if you could really relate to the fact that it has the equivalent of a common cold, a common cold for anyone under 45 or up to 45 that's healthy, and a seasonal flu for those 45 and older, it would change your entire focus and direction. In fact, had you not been told about this COVID, you most likely would have never even known it existed. Straight up. In fact, for those of you over 45, would have most likely never really knew it existed besides, oh, it was a seasonal flu, or so-and-so had a heart attack. And obviously there was something else that assisted with that process, or so-and-so had pneumonia and this other thing was also present and activated that process. Most of us would probably not even know that this was a thing unless it was made to be a thing on purpose, directing our focus. And I think that's the thing I'm hoping to support with the most awareness for breaking this spell. Besides the fact that, again, even with the inflated statistics, even if this was the most transmutable thing that got everywhere, even from those getting it, this tiny bit are actually going to be fatally affected. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have something mutate. I'm not saying that now the launching of the technological attempt to evolve to higher frequency through the 5G is going to not have a natural effect on the biology of the human beings on the planet. And we're going to see where that goes. Not to say that there isn't going to be a second wave of who knows what else they try to introduce or instigate from this mandatory vaccine that is still being pushed on a lot of forefronts. And not to say that as they're already planting the seed for a second wave and getting to repeat that phrase, second wave, second wave, second wave, and repeating that through their mockingbird directive, that there isn't going to be a focus, and those being afraid of this are going to focus on this thing. And again, through attracting frequency, if this is a fact, when you think in the neurokinetics of your brain, energy is released. Does everyone know that? That's a fact. Look it up, please. When you have a thought in the neurokinetics in your brain, there's a bioelectric release, and this frequency, photonic frequency, goes out. Everyone knows that, right? Thus, those frequencies, if you can direct a frequency and repeat the focus, you can manifest it. Most of us don't use the law of attraction in quantum physics to attract things because we'll focus on it, but then we focus on something that's counterproductive to the frequencies focused on. We end up canceling out a lot of what we focus on by going into webs of counter thought forms that cancel that out. But why do you think that they need to keep repeating and repeating and keep redirecting and keeping you focused? They need you to keep focusing your thought forms, your energy through thought on this thing to keep manifesting it. that's the thing that may be kind of an interesting dynamic with all of the revelations and revealings that are coming, where you're going to have to start looking at all of these reveals, is how much these people that have controlled everything have a very deep understanding of the quantum field and of quantum mechanics and of the thought grid and of consciousness and of how to direct and manipulate the mind. There's a brilliance to all of this ancient knowledge. The sad thing is how much they've used it in a regressive way to try to control and manipulate, rather than to actually use it for good in ways that can benefit a humanity. And that's where, with the revealing and quantum thought, quantum mechanics, metaphysics, uh, spiritual knowledges that they have warped and directed to manipulate, that's now going to start being used for good, and more people are going to have access and awareness to it, which is one of the intentions for my strange fringe contribution. Is if you're coming to this on some degree, you may have gone through a lot of the conspiracy dynamics and infrastructures, but ultimately been left with understanding of how does this still personally, you know, how, like, all of this is super heady and out there, and what can I do personally to empower, connect, redirect, evolve, rebel against the conditioning and programming on an individual level that actually makes a difference and matters, more than just, I'm going to share this video that opened my eyes to, I'm going to share this. That's still a valid way. Sharing information, sharing this knowledge with people is important, and don't think that it's not. Don't disregard the individual that you're like, oh, I want to share this with so and so, but I don't know if they're just going to like react or whatever, or if they're even going to be receptive to it. You might share something that becomes a pivotal piece that opens somebody's whole reality. So that, we don't really understand the significance of how we can share knowledge and wisdom at this point, and people that are ready to hear that information, knowledge, will benefit from it in ways that you'd be blown away that that one little link you sent opened something so profound. But you know what, that happened to me. That was one of the ways. One of the researchers in my intel network sent me a piece that totally broke the psychopathy of any of this virus stuff for me. And I just had a tiny fringe of, and I noticed, and I saw it. I saw the interwoven infectiousness of it, where I saw myself starting to like wipe down a basket before I went into the store with the sanitizer wipe. Just at first it was like, oh, I'll just do this to be safe. Oh, it doesn't matter what. But then I started to watch the identification with doing it. With how I would embrace somebody, because I thought, oh, not even for me. It wasn't even for me. It was for my partner. She already has an immune thing. She's pregnant. So I started to think of it related to that. I had still maintained I'm overly confident with the microbiological federation of of health and wellness immunity enforcers within my vessel. But it was more in consideration to those close to me that could potentially be affected by something like this. But even then, the psychopathy was broke so clearly with just one piece of intel that opened me up, and it changed everything. I stopped the germiness, even the slight bit of washing, all that stuff I broke, and now I'm having to dive deep into the compassion and tolerance of being forced to wear this restrictive device that blocks my airflow um, when I go out to get food or interface with human beings in stores, because in Hawaii we've had this, many of you have gotten this new face mask thing. We've had this for quite some time now, and unfortunately we are a lockdown state here, and we are not only having unified agenda orders carried out here, but we're also having the phobia and fear and ignorance of both the governor and the mayor here, and whatever underlying things of them wanting to kind of break from the US more anyways, and kind of really block people from coming more to these islands. There's several agendas that I'm watching play out here that have been absurd in affecting me personally, both with my mother recently getting arrested in such an absurd way, and now being most likely fined who knows, $2, $3, $4,000 potentially if she doesn't come back and contest this in August, which we could easily contest in court, and I'm happy to still show up if I can. But and then two of my other friends being arrested at the airport who were coming out and had a place to stay and were forced to stay in a little state supported federal corporate facility instead of being able to stay at my auntie's where they were set up to stay, and they were forced to be there for 2 weeks. So I've seen some really absurd components, all for something, like I said before, that, you know, it's just sad to see the lack of education. Forget about medical knowledge of microbiology, virology, just understanding how this thing works better, so that you could understand, if you really looked at statistics and scale, to see how not dangerous this is and not worth the compromise of so many of our constitutional rights and freedoms. But you would see so much deeper how, separate from the physiological side of it, you would just see how much none of this makes sense at all. There's something much deeper going on here, especially when, you know, we hadn't, apparently there were 3 or 4 new cases supposedly on our island, right as we're lifting the travel ban in our island, so you wouldn't have to do the quarantine. These supposedly 4 cases pop up that are not, they're not confirmed anything. And as we've seen now, even with the testing, it's just become, whether it's they double counted wrong, or they're finding that 50% of the positive cases are actually not even, or there was someone who just got tested positive and negative within the same hour. He got 2 tests done. Bottom line is, it's leaving a gray area for them to navigate still and push the psychopathy of fear. And now what I've seen, sadly, with some being closest to me, is the shaming and the psychopathy transitioning to, if you don't wear this mask, this symbol of oppression, that has been even proven medically to not actually protect you from and to hinder your oxygen process, your breathing process. I mean, I watched a video of an OSHA certified oxygen detector, right here, breathing normal, no mask, puts the mask on, puts it right there. Literally, the red light for the detectors going off. It was down to like 6% oxygen. The guy was able to breathe. I believe that certified needs to have 48% for it to be considered a safe environment for you to work with oxygen levels. So, it's there. So then the psychopathy being pushed is that you don't care. You don't care about other people. You or like a ruthless person that just wants to hurt people if you're not wearing this mask and conceding to this charade. So the power lies in your truth, in your self-awareness, in your awakening, in your self-discovery, and you not being a weirdo. So I want to get a t-shirt that says, "Don't be weird. It's just the apocalypse." You make the psychopathy of fear for yourself, especially if you let it in like I did. You have to individually go through and erase it from your reality. You got to stop being weird. You have to allow, you have to allow yourself the courage to break out of this, the reality that you have now constructed, that you're going to get these cooties on the surface of stuff or from humans. You have to start breaking the psychopathy, because if you don't, it's going to continue seeping deeper into you, and you're not going to realize how hard it is to get it out if you don't start pulling it out now. It's just like weeds in a garden. If you don't pull those out while they're fresh, the root systems will get deep in, and they're going to be a lot tougher to cleanse later. And I'm talking down to, you're going to have a reintegration period of just being comfortable to people. If you get so far away from contact and interfacing, you're going to be so awkward and weird reintegrating into contact with people. And it will feel so uncomfortable that so many will just stay in the alienated space place because it just feels safer. I just don't even know. Oh, now it's just safer. It should be safe. You know what? It's just safer if we don't hug we don't embrace. Just like, oh, because of those mountain lions, you know what? It'd probably just be safer that I don't go hike anymore because I don't have to even deal with the possibility of there being a lion. Do you understand? But by avoiding going out into nature and hiking, because it's just safer than dealing with a mountain lion, that creates what alternative? An entire life with less outdoor magical experiences because of the potential of something that has been shown to you on television and focused upon so much that you have believed that it is something worth worrying and focusing about. That's not. That's the trick. That's the point. It's not. I don't even care about, it's not about proving anyone wrong. You shouldn't believe me. You should do your own research. Please do your own research. Please, please, God, please. Do your own research. Look outside of the mainstream media and don't just go shrugging off sources for something because they're not what? What do you think half of the mainstream media thrives on? It's not, it ain't fact just because it comes out in the New York Times or the New York Post or the Washington Times, okay? But I will tell you that more and more news outlets that you would probably respect and regard are coming out with stories that you wouldn't believe that they're running now because there's enough evidence for it, and that will continue. Now, I even just went down a deep rabbit hole of deepfakes. Maybe I'm just not, super hip with the times, but whoa, deepfakes. You know, they used this full. There was a period around 2000 where we switched from analog to digital. Everything was switched. They did a countdown and everything. I remember it. And what that did was you can't really manipulate video footage. But when they switched to digital, you can do anything. That's the thing. That's why we switched to digital is you can manipulate digital audio and digital visual video. You can manipulate the interface. You can easily manipulate the interface. So now, in one of the Star Wars, they did Princess Leia younger, and they did a whole thing, and it was time-staking effort, cost all this money to do. Guess what? There are now programs you can buy, apps on your phone that is almost as good as what they paid all this money to do for Star Wars, and produces almost the exact same quality of animation to get enough pictures of somebody. It puts all these little guide points and actually animates a realistic version of them. And I mean, at this point, you could really stage an interview with somebody that's not really there. You could construct and orchestrate. Same with the voice. They now have voice programs that, if you have somebody's 40-minute speech or 30-minute speech, you could actually take and actually recreate their entire vocal diet, the vocal vocabulary, audio vocabulary, and orchestrate it just by you talking. It's them talking. And these programs are now, you can purchase these as apps on your phone. It's been amazing to watch what they're able to do with these, what they call deep fakes. So, there is a lot going on behind the scenes, and I'm excited to see the reveal. And we're in it right now. And at the same time, you know why it's the most exciting? Because I have personal practices that I'm constantly clearing and deconditioning and decoding my consciousness from all of this programmed collective homogenization that I have psychologically collected in my being. And these practices get to come out. They're cleansing you. They're clearing you. You hold memory in your face. You have over 60 muscles in your face that make all of your expressions and micro expressions. All these little, all this stuff, that's all, there's memory held in all of that. And when you activate and release it, you release the memory. It drains in your bloodstream and it filters out of the body. When you do this breath work that we showed you today for the breath technique that I gave you guys to play with, when you do basic holotropic breathing that we've talked about, where you inhale twice through the nose and mouth and exhale through the mouth, do this for a minute and then blow all the air out and stay breathless for 30 seconds, then take a deep breath Column of light from earth to sky. Do 3 rounds of this breath. Super easy. Twice in through the nose and mouth and out through the mouth. When you do this, you're activating your system. You're activating your cells. You're flushing and clearing and grounding in to be more at peace, to be more in your center. Because everything I talk about that's going on externally, I can witness and experience being rooted off of these practices internally. Being rooted personal connections I stay grounded in. So for those of you watchers, for those of you witnesses out there really watching what's happening, always keep perspective to stay grounded and rooted in your center. All right. Now, as these weeks progress, obviously, we got a new little one. It's pretty much crazy family mode with chickens and puppies and babies and wildness. So I am really excited to get into a flow and tempo with the process because we've definitely been deep in it. It's the first week, and obviously sleep is, what it is. I actually think I look pretty good for the amount of sleep that I've been having with my beloved and taking care of all the little ones and having my mom here in the midst of a pandemic and all the fun stuff that's come with that pandemic, excuse me. So, but I'm looking forward to having more interfaced, interactive shows where we're going to be going through both treatments in the second half, second hour, ice bath treatments. I'm going to kind of take you with me on some journeys. I want it to be more interactive and explorative, and I want to actually build more practice segments, and I want to connect you guys to a lot of the information platforms. So, of course, as usual, Matrix Body Mechanics TV on our YouTube channel, there's a lot of video content that's showing more explorative information on how to do the techniques for neuromuscular therapy, how to do holotropic breathing or any of the Rishi yogic breath work, how to make raw almond milk and cookies. I'm putting out, finally getting that video out, the second one, and just so we have some really big things in the works. I'm really excited about. I can't really talk about that has to do with our coconut yogurt, the super probiotic yogurt that we've had the vision to get out to at least nationwide to help the guts and heal the guts of humanity. And so some very exciting things in the works, along with building out the platform for the 12 video self-treatment series for neuromuscular therapy. This stuff is simple, it's easy, it's squeezing yourself every day. Your body is designed to be released and brushed like you brush your teeth, and we understand that if I don't brush my teeth, they're going to get plaque and tartar. The body is the same. You have to have a regimen, and it's not going to be just stretching and yoga. It's not going to be just breath work. Your body wants a manual sweep brushing of itself, where one side's relaxed and the other side is active, and then it switches, and you do both, and you release more endorphins, you activate yourself into your body. It's best to do it before you go to sleep. You're already trying to relax and calm down from your day, so it's the perfect time to integrate it. And we're working on the platform to get this 12 video series to show you how to do each section of the body down. But there's a lot of content where I'm just showing you how to do it. You can get started with right now to activate and empower yourself for this week as we go into it. Now, it's going to be a crazy 4th of July. I feel like some big stuff is afoot. So this would be also a great opportunity to get really grounded as we go into some days representing independence in a country that is feeling pretty fired up about, a lot of stuff right now, and I believe has been fueled specifically by the parties looking to steer this pandemic and steer the division and chaos, even more so to compromise the elections coming up. So if not now, then when is a good time to ground into the spiritual sciences and stay rooted as you go through with eyes open, no attachment, no identification, just openness and awareness to watch where this story unfolds. So I'm going to bring it on that note to a close for this week's Matrix Body Mechanics Live. I am really excited to take this week to build some more content and be really prepared for a great show next week for you all. But it's been an honor to spend the last couple hours here for Monday to set the tone for the week. It's always a pleasure. It's a huge thing in my life right now to be able to share it, because my platform has been very limited, and obviously being very isolated out here and not be able to work on my practice in Los Angeles, and then having a baby to stay and really play this role. This is a huge piece for me to be able to still get information out, time sensitive information, when I do believe, and let's just say hypothetically, that December 21st to January 1st is this magic portion where you have an opportunity as a being to really transcend the karmic evolution process spiritually that happens every 6,000 years. Why wouldn't you utilize this increment of the time consciousness matrix right now with awareness and prepare yourself for that in every way possible? At least even savoring and enjoying every moment of the world as it is before these great changes happen. I've never been more sure of anything in my entire life. And the thing about that sureness is there's no attachment to exactly what is going to happen. There is a full surrender to the not knowing, to the unknowing of what that is, but an overall objective observation of larger advanced systems that we have mapped our own astronomy from. These same advanced beings who came up with this system that is tracking it all, lining up December 21st, an alignment that takes place and hasn't for 6,000 years. And if you track back 6,000 years ago, there was some crazy stuff that went down. So it is a time of great transformation and change. It's a time for empowerment and activation for you. And these are little mile markers to give you the opportunity to bring that presence and awareness moving forward, to be fully, authentically engaged and not blindsided or caught off guard, which was one of the visions that was the most imprinted for me, as traumatic as I was in myself in the future, blindsided by this event, and had the awareness that I was not prepared or had any awareness. And why was that I was not more tuned in? And that was my greatest perspective from that vision, is I was shown that to be tuned in, and that was 20 years ago that it set the tone for that. So I'm just sharing the reverberations of that truth and the things that I have factually established, collecting pixels in a very big picture that I've been studying for the last 20 years, as many of you have. So it's about us holding our pictures up and looking at the pixels and finding the patterns, the truth in the patterns. So with that, Matrix Body Mechanics TV on YouTube channel. www.matrixbodymechanics.com is our website. You can check out all kinds of content on there, as well as our education platforms. You can sign up. Please become a subscriber or like our channel for YouTube. It'll give you updates when we're doing different types of videos. And again, really looking to start expanding our content very soon, especially with food and biochemical nutrition. So grateful for all of you. It's truly been an honor, as usual, and I want to just support your mind, body, and spirit alignment moving into this week, present in your breath, being the witness. Present, being the witness. Aloha, blessings, and